Hello, everyone. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and this is Monday, November 3rd, 2020. It's the beginning of Judgment Week. For within the next 48, 72 hours, we will know if Phil McConnell is coming to Florida. And the possibility is at about 95 to 99% certainty that he will be coming to Florida. Now, Phil McConnell seems to have a problem comprehending facts because he's getting on there and saying that he has been in jail longer than 90 days without being charged. Well, if Phil McConnell would go back and read all the court papers in this case, he will find that he has been charged. He's been charged with 3 counts of criminal cyberstalking. That's why the state of Florida requested that the state of Wisconsin hold Phil McConnell. It's because he is being charged in the state of Florida with 3 counts of felony cyberstalking, and they want him to come down there and face those charges. So he's screwed up in the first 30 seconds of his show today. And all Phil McConnell would have to do is get out that little Black's Law dictionary he's got, probably the paperback edition, and go through it. It's in there. You know, it's what happens when somebody outside of a charging state is charged with a crime and an extradition is requested. Now, Phil McConnell, if he had not waived extradition and allowed himself to come to Florida, this would have been over by now. But Mr. McConnell had the bright, genius idea of fighting extradition. And because of that, he's in a county jail. He's going to be transferred to the state of Florida, and he's going to stay in jail down there until the process plays out. You know, Mr. McConnell decided he wanted to be the super genius lawman that knows everything about nothing and fight this without a qualified lawyer. And now he's stuck, and he will not admit that he's taken the wrong path and get himself a competent lawyer. Instead, he's relying on these weirdos to give him legal advice. And one of these weirdos is David Straight. And this is part of what I'm going to talk about today, and something I am calling Straight to Hell. Because David Straight is in the middle of a lot of things here. Now, it is not absolutely certain at this point is if it is that David Straight that is currently advising Phil McConnell, or someone like this nitwit judge from the Northwest, or whoever else might be part of this alternative law group. That includes the mysterious Kirk Pendergrass and the CEO of this thing, Chris Hallett, and the clever name they come up with for their law firm, which is E-Clause, which is, by the way, annulments clause. It seems to be the favorite word that everybody's playing with, and that's exactly what it means. The problem is these people are misinterpreting it, because what they're saying as far as who is taking advantage of the annulments is all wrong. If anybody's taking advantage of annulments, it's Mr. Donald J. Trump, but I'm not going down that route. But what we have here is a group of people that don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, trying to tell some 70-year-old what to do so he can get out of jail, and in the process they're just making matters worse. And in the end, it's not them that have anything to lose, it's the 70-year-old man. And Phil McConnell doesn't seem to comprehend this. He thinks everybody's out there trying to help him get out of the little mess, and so on and so forth, when they're not. They're gambling. What they're doing is they're saying that if Phil McConnell gets out of his little mess, they're going to take all the credit for it. If Phil McConnell does not get out of his little mess, then they're going to blame the system. They're going to say it's rigged or some other nonsensical tripe, and they will not admit that they were wrong. They'll say it's a kangaroo court, they'll say this, they'll say that. They did it with Timmy Holmstad. And so Phil McConnell will find himself in Florida 7 days from now. It's almost guaranteed. Because what will happen is by Wednesday, state of Minnesota or state of Wisconsin will have made up their mind, and they'll say, look, Florida's right. You need to go to Florida. You need to argue with them. Pack your bags. State of Florida will send up some nice, beefy SWAT people from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. And Phil McConnell will get himself a Florida vacation. And Phil McConnell's going to find out that things are a hell of a lot different in Florida. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next Monday. Because Phil McConnell may or may not be able to do his Bible readings next week. Now, it does not mean that Phil McConnell's not going to be able to call whoever the producer of his show is and get the show recorded and rebroadcast over YouTube. But it's going to have to do with how long he's going to be able to make the call, and if he's going to be able to get along with the members of the pod where he's going to be residing. Because Phil McConnell's about to make a huge change in his environment. He is going from a rural county jail in a sparsely populated county in the Midwest to an institution with a criminal population greater than that of the entire county in which he lives. We're talking 3,500 people. And the pod that he's going to go into is going to have a population in it that's pretty close to the entire city of Plum. The city of Plum. Kind of a funny way of putting that. It's Plum City. But the entire population of Plum City. Roughly 500 to 600 people. That's how many people are generally in a pod. Now that varies depending on the size of the pod and the security level. Now this is the booking center of Fort Lauderdale. He's not going to be there very long. He's going to go from one prison to another. Alright, now the thing we run into here is trying to sort out what's going to happen to Phil McConnell when he gets to Florida. Not if, when. Because it's just, like I said, it's a 95% certainty. He will initially go to the booking center. I'm not sure how long he stays there, but it's not going to be for very long. But he'll go to the initial site where he will appear. At that point, he will be transferred to a regular prison to await trial. Now, I may be wrong on that part. He may wind up staying where he's at. That's just something that I'm going to have to check into. But at any rate, this is not going to be, Phil goes down there, they say, oh, we didn't mean to bring you down here, you're done, you can go home. He's going to be down there a while. Probably quite a while. This is something that Phil McConnell does not understand. That this is not an instant process. That Phil McConnell has a long road to hoe. Because he'll make an initial appearance. A hearing will be scheduled. And this could be the first of a series of hearings, depending on how big of a fight Phil McConnell puts up, what happens in that initial hearing, and so forth. There could be 2 or 3 more of these. And then, sometime down the road, there's going to be a trial. And the trial will likely last a day. Because there's not much to talk about here. They're going to present the evidence. Prosecution's going to make their argument. Phil McConnell may make his argument. Then it goes to a jury. Oh, and I got to mention that somewhere in this process there'll be a jury selection. But, because Phil McConnell's not going to ask for a bench trial. He's going to ask for a jury trial. Because somebody's going to tell him to. Which is fine, either way he's screwed. But, get a jury trial, jury's going to hear the case. Boom, end of story. He gets convicted. Sits in jail for a while, and then he comes back for sentencing. See, this is a thing that is little understood in the judicial process. Sometimes, in a trial, jury renders a verdict. And this goes in to mandatory sentencing. The jury can't come back and say, we recommend a sentence. This is not a capital crime. It's a felony, but it's not a capital crime. The judge is the one that imposes sentence. And he goes according to sentencing guidelines. There's a maximum sentence. And then there's a point system that goes along with the sentencing. And the point system determines the recommended sentence that the judge will impose on Phil McConnell. And so, because of this, it is unlikely that the judge is going to impose sentencing on the day of the verdict. The judge will schedule another hearing. It's called a sentencing hearing. And at that time, there's going to be some filings made as far as whether or not there's going to be probation, parole, all kinds of things. There's a little bit of a bureaucracy that happens here. And what I'll do is, if we get through to that process of when the next step is going to take place and so forth, I'll do that. I did this in the Derek Lassiter case. And Phil McConnell's going to go down the same road. So what's going to happen is that Phil McConnell's going to get remanded to jail to wait sentencing. And then the day's going to come and Phil McConnell will find out his fate. How long he's going to be in jail, what's going to happen when he gets out of jail, so on and so forth. So, all these people are sitting there saying, oh, Phil McConnell is going to get out of this. Somebody's going to wave a magic wand and, there's going to be a great victory and remember the plan or stick to the plan or whatever this plan stuff is they talk about. I would be prepared for the worst. I'm a believer in something called the worst case scenario. And that is, you always think of the worst thing that could possibly happen. Now, I do think the worst possible thing that could happen is that Phil McConnell get acquitted. It's a possibility. Phil McConnell has about a 5 to 10% chance of walking out of that Wisconsin jail a free man. And if he does, it's going to have an unaffected side effect that I don't think the supporters of Phil McConnell have thought out very well. Now, remember what Phil McConnell was put in jail for. Think long and think hard. Put your biases on hold here for just a minute. Phil McConnell made violent remarks about women. Made threats about women. One in particular. Said all these things should happen to this particular woman. So Phil McConnell gets acquitted. Now this sets up what is known as a legal precedent. Because if Phil McConnell gets away with this, he's just given any man or anyone the right to use this kind of dialogue against any woman. Now let me emphasize this again so it gets through the thick head of people out there. If Phil McConnell is acquitted, this gives anyone the right to engage in the same behavior towards any woman or anyone. Now, why is this important? There are women on Phil's side of this. There are people on Phil's side of this. Well-known people on Phil's side of this. And there are those out there who probably wish the same fate towards these women and these people as Phil McConnell wished towards Kim Picazio. And because Phil McConnell gets acquitted of what he did and said towards Kim Picazio, everyone is now free to employ the same conduct towards everyone on the other side. So just ask yourselves, supporters of Phil McConnell, is this what you want? Do you want to give unknown weirdos out there free rein to say and do whatever they please, to engage in the kind of conduct that Tim Holmseth is alleged to engage in against people you in particular, your friends, your children? Is this what you want? Because this is what you're going to get. Because what applies to Phil McConnell applies to everybody. It's either against the law to do these things or it's legal. There's no middle ground. There's no restriction to say, oh, you can only do this against Kim Picazio or Hillary Clinton or anybody else. You can't do this to anybody else, just these people. No, 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 no. If Phil McConnell gets acquitted on these legal arguments, nobody's immune. Not you, not me, nobody. It'll be a free-for-all out there. There'll be death threats all over the place. Everybody will get death threats. There'll be no stopping it. Because this is what you want. You want people to go around and threaten to kill each other. This is what these sovereigns want. They don't care. You know, this is what we're walking into here. We're walking into anarchy. We're walking into a lawless society where anything goes. All because some 70-year-old man can't keep his big fat mouth shut. So be careful what you wish for. Because you'll be going straight to hell if Bill McConnell gets acquitted of all this. Because it'll embolden him. He'll just get worse. And people will say, fine, if Phil McConnell's going to engage in this kind of thing, so will we. Fair is fair. He made the rules, we're going to follow his rules. You know, this is, people need to think when they get involved in stuff like this, what the ramifications are going to be. And this is where we're at here. Now, like it or not, Phil McConnell broke the law. And Phil McConnell is in the process of answering for it. Now, through some legal trickery, he's able to beat the system and walk out of that county jail. He's given a free rein to anybody else, and I mean anybody else, to do the exact same thing, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Oh, you can sit there and be tough and say, oh, you come to my door, I'll have a gun at the ready. But there's ways of terrorism without the use of a gun. Phil McConnell's proven that. Lies can be destroyed without the use of a gun. It can be done with a keyboard. Phil McConnell's proven that. So, all right, you do your prayer meetings, and you do your praying, and you do your hoping, and comments of support and everything for Phil McConnell. But just keep in the back of your head what's going to happen if he gets acquitted. Because it will be quite literally all hell breaking loose if he gets off. Because all someone has to do, if they get arrested for the same thing Phil McConnell does, is pull out McConnell versus the state of Florida. And that's their get out of jail free card. You see, Phil McConnell was acquitted for doing the same thing. If Phil McConnell can do it, I can do it. Let me out of here. End of story. So whose mothers, wives, daughters, children or grandchildren are going to be next if Phil McConnell gets acquitted? Think about it, kiddies. Think about what you're hoping for. And, be ready to buy those Zim bonds. And, dole out the money for the Children's Ranch and for the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force and all that. Because they'll be begging for that. They'll be emboldened, and they'll be doing all their little speeches, and the money's just going to come pouring in. And it'll be quite a long time before people realize that they've been played for suckers. That they just threw their money down a dry well. Hell. Because I'll tell you something. For me personally, it doesn't make a bit of difference. It's just a story I'm following. Phil McConnell gets acquitted. Ain't gonna hurt me any. As they say, I don't have a dog in the race. I don't have a horse in the race. I don't have a stake in this. Kim is the one with the stake in this. Truth is the one that has a stake in this, not me. I don't care. I'll just keep jabbing away with whatever happens. Phil McConnell gets off the hook, I'll report on. I'll say, well, Phil McConnell got off the hook. This is what happened. This is why. And I'll keep reporting on him. Till people get tired of hearing about it, and then I'll close up shop, I guess. I don't know. Because Phil McConnell's a public figure. He's got an audience of about 50,000 people. So he's a subject of public interest, so to speak. What he does is a matter of public interest. This little fraud that he's got going on. And the same goes for Mr. Straight. David Straight is another one of these alternative law system seminar holders. He's got quite a little racket here, quite a profitable one. And it's generating a tidy sum of money. David Straight's managed to keep his nose clean because he delegates. He does his little seminars and does his little schools or whatever the hell you want to call it, and lets everybody else do the dirty work. And because of that, he seems to be able to keep his nose clean. Now, there's indications that may not last forever. The walls are closing in. But I can't make any guarantees because the situation with Mr. Straight's a little complicated. And it turns out that people that get snared into David Straight's little trap are the ones that wind up being fed to the wolves in the end. And the latest of one of these is Mr. Timothy Charles Homestead, who's walked right into a trap, and he doesn't realize it. Timothy Charles Homestead worships David Straight, thinks he's the next thing to God. David Straight got involved with Tim Homestead quite a long time ago, almost in the beginning of this Pentagon pedophile crap, because it was planned that way. Timothy Charles Homestead was put forth as a useful idiot a long time ago, and he's been groomed ever since. And Tim Homestead fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And now he is under absolute and complete control of this little cult. He's been cut off from his most trusted friend, who finally, after all these years, realizes it. And she's probably sitting there wondering what's going to happen now. And the thing of it is, I don't have an answer. I don't know what's going to happen. We're in a new chapter of Tim Homestead's life now. Now, he's going to continue to do these minor little conspiracy theories for a while. But in a short while, I would say within a week or two, we're going to start seeing some changes in the way things are done with Tim Homestead. He's going to get a little bit more emboldened. Or so he thinks, because he's going to be fed what to say. Now remember, Tim Homestead says that all his information comes from the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. And David Straight is that source of information. It's been that way all along. David Straight's going to tell him what to say. And depending on what Tim Homestead says and how he says it's going to affect how things are going to go for a while. And I can guarantee you it's not going to go well for Tim Homestead. Now, I'm not going to give away the store too much for right now. But I will say this. Whatever Tim Homestead does or says, Tim Homestead alone is going to be responsible. Tim Homestead is not going to be able to use any excuses. Not going to be able to pan off what he says or does on anyone else. That's not the way this works. Because what Tim Homestead says and does is going to be from Tim Homestead. It's the way the plan works. All the responsibility, all the liability, very important word, liability, is going to be placed on the shoulders of Timothy Charles Homestead. So that when a time of reckoning comes, and it will come, it'll fall squarely on Timothy Charles Homestead. Now, what is going to happen to Timothy Charles Homestead? Not quite clear yet. I have some scenarios in the back of my head about what might happen with little Timmy, and none of them are pleasant. But Timothy is stepping into dangerous, shark-infested waters here. And knowing Timothy Homestead, he's going to throw caution to the wind, and he's just going to go with it. And he's going to find himself in the middle of a mess. You know, and people that are concerned for him have tried to warn him. People that don't necessarily like him, but don't like what might befall Tim, have tried to warn him. And he simply will not listen. He's got himself isolated from those that have his best interests at heart. He's surrounded himself with people that have their own agenda, their own goals, and their own uses for Timothy Homestead. They don't care about Timothy Homestead. Timothy Homestead is a tool. He's like a hammer, or a drill, or a screwdriver. And if the drill breaks, the hammer breaks, the screwdriver breaks, they're going to throw it away and get another one. They'll get another useful idiot. There'll always be one in the background. Preacher Dan. Now, Preacher Dan is a possibility, although I doubt it, because Preacher Dan can't be controlled. He's a wild card. There's limits as to what they can do with Preacher Dan, because Preacher Dan is too independent. He won't allow himself to be bossed around. They've already tested him. They say, this guy's too weird. Now, Phil McConnell was a puppet. They did a lot with Phil McConnell. Phil McConnell went and made a basic mistake. You know, he got in a situation that apparently the handlers didn't anticipate. He got someone that knew how to fight back in his radar. And now he's paying the price for that. But now, they kind of learn from the mistakes a little bit. You don't hear the same mistake being made by these other people. Not since, say, September 30th. Or even October. See, there came a point when people realized this is a road we don't need to be going down. You know, picking on this particular attorney's not going to help our case any. So we need to back off. See, even if Phil McConnell's acquitted, they are going to realize that this is probably not going to help them much to keep attacking this woman. Because she's not going to give up. You know, Phil McConnell thinks that getting acquitted and getting out of jail is going to get him off the hook. He's got nothing coming because there's something called civil docket. Civil lawsuits that he might have to face. And the civil docket works a little different. So, this is not over with, no matter what happens. But now, see, it's time to cast aside Phil McConnell in the group size. Phil McConnell is no longer useful. Oh, there'll be the little subgroup here that's always been around Phil McConnell is going to be there. The good doctor, couple of these supporters that are still with him. This little group, they're going to do their thing for as long as they can. But they're going to find that they're on the losing side of a battle here. That their cause is depleting on a daily basis. They probably got 6 months to live, so to speak, if that. But I give it a maximum of 6 months, because the David Strait crowd's going to overtake them, and fast. The attention is going to be pushed away from Phil McConnell very quickly, because it doesn't suit their purposes anymore. The ABSUG situation proved that. That's where the direction is going. You're going to see a lot more ABSUGs coming down the road. There's a couple of these in progress already. People don't realize it. There's 2 or 3 other ABSUGs out there running around, avoiding CPS, avoiding custody. They're not getting the attention that Cynthia got because they're not as important. But it's being done. They're being helped, or so they think. And the reason that attention is not being paid to them is because they're not going around calling talk shows. They're doing this more or less privately. And they think because they are employing this method that they're not going to get caught, which is not true. And we may not hear about these 2 or 3 cases right off the bat because they're not that important. But they'll come out eventually. There'll be a report that mother picked up for interfering with the custody of her 2 children, her daughter, her son, you know. There's one involving 2 children about 2 years apart, I believe. They'll get picked up. There'll be a brief splash in the local paper, and you won't hear about it anymore. There'll be a bunch of these minor cases. Because what separated them from the ABSUG case is that the daughter in the ABSUG case made a big deal out of it. And QAnon got involved. But the one thing that's going to happen here is you're going to start hearing less and less and less about QAnon. Now, from Timothy Homestead, you may hear about the pedophile task force and the Pentagon and all this. But you're going to start hearing a heck of a lot less about QAnon. I think QAnon has proven to be a liability. Now, there's going to be people like Timothy's escort that might continue on with the QAnon farce. But I think if they follow the sensible path, that going to steer away from QAnon. Because QAnon is off mission. It's off topic. Has nothing to do with the agenda of CPS. QAnon has nothing to do with CPS. Has nothing to do with child trafficking. QAnon is in a totally different arena. Now, people may try to draw QAnon into this mess, but that would be off message. Because QAnon is largely political. Has to do with the deep state and all this other stuff. Doesn't have anything to do with human trafficking or CPS and this crap. Totally different ballgame. Totally different sport, so to speak. Oh, that brings me to a funny, just a go off track here, something funny that I heard on Phil McConnell. He's saying something about child trafficking in the Super Bowl. Seems you can't have anything nowadays without somebody like Phil McConnell coming along and spoiling it. And so he spoiled the Super Bowl with bringing up another conspiracy theorist having to do with the Super Bowl. Now, he might be just a little bit right. Because human trafficking, totally different from child trafficking, probably does exist because of prostitutes. But it's adults that that get involved in human trafficking as victims. People that come in here through immigration sponsorships or otherwise are under the control of someone. Usually women that are addicted to drugs get trafficked and stuff like that. So there is a kind of human trafficking. So I'll give him that. But again, this is all exaggerated. But, you know, he had to go and spoil the Super Bowl. So thank you, Dan. And thank you, Mr. McConnell. And then Mr. McConnell, once again, slandered the family court system of Fort Lauderdale. And we, of course, know why he did that. Not a wise thing for McConnell to do, but he did it. See, under normal circumstances, if someone is facing litigation in a criminal case, they learn to keep their big goddamn mouth shut and wait for the process to go through so they don't prejudice their case. Bill McConnell's incapable of doing that, and he may wind up paying a price for it. Time will tell. But getting back to the subject at hand. So, Timothy Homseth is now in direct contact with David Straight at his residence, at his domicile, in the tiger's den, so to speak, under his thumb. Not telling what's going on over there, how long he's going to stay there, and what plans they're going to make. But I don't think it's going to bode well for Tim Homseth in the long run. Because whatever plans that David Straight has for Tim Homseth, he had for a long time. And he's had a long time to work out all the details. And he also has an escape strategy. And by that, I mean if Tim Holmseth screws up or becomes too much of a problem, David Straight has a way to dispose of Timothy Charles Holmseth, to get rid of him. Now, it may not be disposal in the literal sense. You may not find Tim Holmseth as coyote food in the middle of the Oregon Desert or something. But Tim Holmseth could find himself a scapegoat, taking one for the team, so to speak, wind up being charged with multiple felonies and prosecuted. That's where I think we're going here. I think at some point, in the not too distant future, Tim Holmseth will wind up being charged with a felony. Or multiple felonies. Because of something he says or does on the internet. David Straight and others will reap the benefits of Tim Holmes's work, and then they're going to throw him out like garbage. That's the worst case. Best case scenario is that Tim Holmseth becomes a useful idiot, completely dependent on this people. At some point, he'll outlive his usefulness, and he'll be handed a suitcase and shown the door. And Tim Holmseth will be forced to move on. Because something's going to happen that always happens in these situations. People get bored. People want something new. They want the latest thing. You know, a fad is a fad is a fad, and Tim Holmseth is a fad. You know, at some point, people are going to get tired of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. They're going to get tired of shoes and trees and mad scientists and all this other hokey stuff that comes out of the mouth of Tim Holmseth. And they're going to want something more interesting. More, if not more sensible, at least more dramatic. You know, they're tired of the rerun. Because that's basically what Tim does, is he takes and he recycles the same thing, puts a different theme to it, but it's the same plot with different characters. Reminds me, there was a Twilight Zone episode once, and you had all these people in a room, and they'd go through a little play, and you'd hear this noise in the background, bang, 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 and the people would sit there. You'd have, say, a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, you know, 4 different characters. And then something would happen. And then it would come back and you'd have the same 4 character, and you had the same 4 people. And you'd hear the bang, 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 bang in the background. But the person that was the teacher would turn into the doctor. The person that was the doctor would turn into this other character. The same people, but different characters. And it turned out the bang, bang, bang you were hearing was an author writing a story, and the people standing around in the room with the characters in the story. And the author would decide that the story didn't work. He'd throw out the paper and he'd start a new story, and he'd change the characters around, or he might change the story around. So it was a variations of a theme. And so that's what we've got going on with Timothy Holmseth. We got the little Twilight Zone episode, I should say, where Timothy Holmseth is changing the characters of the story, or modifying the story, one or the other. But it's the same story. But he's just tweaking it a little bit every time he tells it. Changing the fishtail. And so that's what we have. And eventually people are going to see through that, and they're going to get tired of it, and they're going to want something different. They're going to want something new. They're going to want a breath of fresh air, new scenery. And so David Straight's going to have to find somebody else in order to keep things going, because he wants to expand his influence. And so he'll find somebody else to do something a little bit different, do something better than Tim Homeseth. And it's at that point Tim Homeseth is going to find himself cast out. It happened with Steele, and it happened quickly. Timothy Homeseth wasn't associated with Robert David Steele that long. You know, when those two hooked up, Steele thought he had something. You know, and his version of the Children's Crusade, or whatever the hell that thing was, he thought he had something with Tim Homeseth. And he found out he had a big nothing. Tim Homeseth couldn't offer anything. And so he got rid of him. Tried to see if he could make money out of a lawsuit, or see if he could get some publicity out of the lawsuit. That didn't work. You know, Steele found out real quick that Kim Picazio is nobody to mess around with. So he bailed. He saw the writing on the wall real quick and said, I'm getting the hell out of this. And he passed Tim Homeseth off to this other bunch. And they're a little bit more skilled to be able to figure out how to use Tim to their advantage, and so that's what they've been doing. Now, they tried to keep Tim in jail, because he would have been a lot more useful in jail for 6 months than he is now. Because being on the run outside the state of Minnesota is not helping them at all. I mean, his benefit is an absolute minimum. He gets a few people on his little blog, and that's about it. He's recycling old videos, old news, but that's all. He's not offering that much. Maybe that's what David Straight's trying to do. He's trying to figure out if Tim is going to be useful to him. And he's probably going to talk to Tim and tell him, say, look, in order for you to be useful, this is what you have to do. And he's going to give him some instructions. Then he's going to sit back and he's going to wait and see if Tim follows these instructions. And if Tim follows the instructions, then he may last a while. 2 to 6 months. But if David Straight doesn't see any benefits from Tim Homeseth, that'll be the end of him. He'll be gone. He'll be disposed of. Because this is a game of high returns, and if he doesn't see a return in his investment with Tim Homeseth, then that's it. Tim Homeseth will be thrown out with yesterday's garbage, and he'll eventually be forgotten. Next time you see Tim Homeseth, might be in a street corner with a cardboard sign asking for a couple dollars, or camped out in a homeless shelter. Who knows? Because Tim Homeseth is not a spring chicken. I mean, he's in his 50s. But, you know, you get 52, 53, 54, 55 years old. You know, you're getting to the point where you're less useful every day, because there's young buds coming up through the system, the young generation, the new generation. So they're the ones that are going to take all the jobs. They're the ones that are going to start making the future. And people my age, Tim's age, you know, we're at the sunset of our lives. We're just counting the years till we take that eternal dirt nap. So Tim Homeseth has squandered his life. You know, he could have made something of himself, and he's turned himself into a big fat nothing. You know, and he may think he's a big shot. out there talking to the man that's supposed to be number two to President Trump, former CIA, former this, former that, the lead operative of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. But he's nothing. It's a small world everybody's in here. When you think of how big the internet is, how many people are on the internet, on YouTube alone? No, you think someone that has 41,000 people subscribe to their channel is a big deal. There's people that fly drones that have 1 million subscribers. There's people that have funny animal trick channels on YouTube that have 1 million people subscribe, have 1.5 million views. Stupid stuff on YouTube that have far more influence than people arguing about task forces and children's crusades and all this other stuff. There's not that many people interested in it. It's sad in a way, but that's the truth here. Even the legitimate channels, websites, where this sort of thing is discussed, there's not that many people discussing it. Check it out. Go on the YouTube channels. Find out who the big shots are. The legitimate ones. That actually try and do something about this in a legitimate way. The numbers simply are not there. No, you compare this to some of the other stuff that's out there. I mean, I see channels where Russian car accidents generate more views. Car chases generate more news. Gossip about Hollywood stars generate more views. Serious stuff, like child trafficking, human trafficking, don't, as a rule. There may be one or two exceptions, but as a whole, on the internet, it's not up there very high. And that's why, it's kind of interesting to see the gambling that's taking place with this subject among the scammers. Because they're involved in a bad investment. They're putting a lot of work in something that has not a very good return. I mean, it has a return, and they're doing good with it, but they could do better with other scams out there. There's some very highly profitable scams out there that they could have a bigger return on. But they choose this for whatever reason. Hard to say why. Maybe it's because it's easier to get away with it. But it is a scam. 80% of these crusades, task forces, and what have you are scams. They're not out there doing what they say they're going to do. They're out there to part people from their money. They're out there to garner undeserved attention, to pull people away from the truth, squandering resources. And there's a few of us out there with our 600 subscriber, 200 subscriber, 100 subscriber channels that resist the scamming, that try to expose it, at least discuss it. But in the end, we know we're fighting an uphill battle. We're not going to win. All we're doing is we're just bringing attention to it, however short that attention might be. But it's going to continue. People like David Straight aren't going to stop. To them we're a mosquito. They'll swat us away, and they'll continue on. And people like Tim Holmseth will pay the price. Phil McConnell will pay the price for these big operators. And in the end, at least it's something, because there'll be one less Phil McConnell, there'll be one less Tim Holmseth. There'll be one less person out there to lie and to cause damage. But it's a never-ending battle. It's one that will never completely be won. Because there's always somebody in the background, always somebody that sees this as a way to make money, to garner influence, to make a big name for themselves. And they'll just keep going, and keep going, and keep going. Kind of like the Energizer Bunny going boom, 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 boom. And basically all this will be for naught. We may do a little bit of good. That's the only thing I can hope for, is to do some good. Prevent one person from falling into this trap. Prevent one person from being victimized. It's all I can hope for. It's all anybody can hope for. And so that's why I continue to do what I do. Please like and subscribe if you want to help. I appreciate it. But in the meantime, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.